states that, I quote, "In addition, Makhanya designed and authorized the construction of the 175 kiloliter fire pool. The total amount paid for the fire pool and the VIP parking was 3.9 million. The Deputy Minister of Public Works, the then Deputy Minister of Public Works, stated that, I quote, she had been involved in the provision of the fire pool. She said the possibility of building a fire pool and a possible building of a swimming pool for use by surrounding communities had been discussed and cost estimates were to be prepared. She did not discuss the fire pool with the President. This is from the SIU report, page 177, paragraph 98. Page 132, paragraph 12 of the SIU report speaks to a table, a spreadsheet, in other words, to the extent that, I quote, it identifies the security requirements as listed in the security assessments and compares them to what was actually constructed, close quote. In that particular table, there is a column that deals with the fire pool and or swimming pool. It states that, I quote, the fire pool was not required or requested by the South African Police Service and the South African National Defence Force, but later the South African Police Service and the National Defence Force included a fire pool as an alternative for firefighting, close quote. In terms of the Durban Prestige Project A, motivations and cost allocation summary, dated the 25th January 2011, the fire pool is defined as, I quote, a groundwater storage facility intended for dual purpose, first to be used for firefighting in the case of emergency. The second use is recreational within the homestead. Note, open surface water compared with reservoir storage is easily accessed in case of emergency. The report by the civil engineering consultant Dibongo Consulting, CC, dated 17 April 2012, in the Department of Public Works Prestige Project A by H.M. Oberhauser, a technical engineer, was considered in this regard, and it states that, I quote, water supply will be from the existing 40 millimeter connection via a 90 millimeter diameter UPVC pipe, class 16 pipe. Storage will be for 48 hours supply in a 250 kiloliter prefabricated steel Galaxy reservoir. The swimming pool will provide a further 138 kiloliter storage for fire protection backup, close quote. The Ibongo report further states, under the topic fire water, that, I quote, provision is made for storage capacity of 388 kiloliters, made up as follows: 250 kiloliters from the Galaxy reservoir plus the swimming pool volume of 138 kiloliters. Assuming that the supply is sufficient, then the 160 millimeter diameter supply will fill the storage in 4.5 hours. A booster connection is provided at the pool, close quote. And further that, quote unquote, provision is made for one hydrant and 2 hose rails to be used at the same time. The next slide basically is the recommended, next slide please, is on the left is the water pump with dual outlets. It's an example of what needs to be on site, and a portable monitor with a nozzle which is operated together with this. Now the next slide is Within honourable members, you must remember that, honourable members, ladies and gentlemen, what I've been taking you through insofar as just this subject matter is concerned is what is contained in the documentary evidence. But it also became necessary for ourselves that it's something else to have something written in a report. But if you say that the fire pool was created for purposes of emergencies and whatever, we needed to satisfy ourselves on the question itself about whether indeed how it would effectively work in practice. But the other issue was that there were also allegations of the question of the insufficient sort of capability in the area in terms of the issues of water supply and everything else. And it is for this reason that we then called them in, your firefighting experts, who also filed written reports, for an example. Before we show this clip, we asked Umhlato's municipality, which is a relatively high-capacity municipality, whereas a capable sort of firefighting sort of equipment and whatever. So we asked them and said, look, come and demonstrate to us how this works. And let me just also declare, ladies and gentlemen, I used to be a municipal manager there, Mr. Sanf. Yeah, you remember that? Okay, good. Yeah, so let me just declare that so that you don't come up with discoveries that are unnecessary. So we asked them and said, no, but take us through this. How is this supposed to work? So they demonstrated that. We then also asked the local municipality, Nkandla municipality, and said, come also and demonstrate to us how this would work and how you would deal with the issue of firefighting here in your own municipality, for instance, in case you have an emergency here at the president's residence. So you are forewarned. The sound quality is not so good. That's one thing. And those of you who are not on the side of classical music, you'll be irritated by Sole Mio. But just bear with us on that. The important thing is the demonstration. It's not the music, it's not the sound quality, it's the demonstration itself in terms of what exactly that particular infrastructure is about. Okay, through you, Chair, can I ask that we then activate it, please? That's right. Thanks.
Just to show you that this can also replenish convey it to the fire engine, and then the fire engine is going to convey water from its pump to the branch man, who will be doing the actual pipeline. This pump has got a special adapter, so it can be used to draft water from the open water source, like a dam, like a pool or a dam. And we do that using the so-called suction hose. Okay, if we have a hydrant, in other words, there's a pressure-fed kind of supply, then we remove the suction hose, this hose over here, and then we connect this fitting. It's called the adapter on the inlet side of the pump. Then we can, that way we will be able to run a line from a pressure-fed supply to supply water into our pump, which will then impart energy to that water, which it will then be able to relate to a further distance. And should we need pressure, that's what basically the pump is capable of, imparting energy, and then also to impart that velocity energy and convert the velocity energy to pressure energy, so that we can be able to put out fire at a distance. So this is the suction strainer that I was referring to. Any foreign matter that can pass through this hole won't be detrimental to your pump. So this is actually capable of keeping out any dirt that might go into the pump. So with our pump, we don't suck. We use the term lift water because our atmospheric pressure does that for us. Okay. So we are not sucking water, but the atmospheric pressure is pushing water into our pump. We can position it anywhere, provided the distance allows us. If need be, we might need to bring another pump. If the pressure is not good, pressure and volume is not good, wherever the fire is, then we may have to bring another pump, which will be either a fire engine or a pump like that. We can position a pump somewhere else, draft water here, convey it to that pump, boost the pressure and volume to another pump, and then from there the same will happen until the water reaches the plant.
I'm told that part of the reason why the visuals, there's a bit of some glitches is because there's a remote that is not connected and so on. So we just do need to apologize for that. However, what comes out quite clearly from this part of demonstration is how much of water capacity you require, but also how much of water pressure you need. I think the fire expert also talks to the question of the throw and the distance that you will also require and so on. Again, he comes back to the issue of the open water source and atmospheric, I'm really from Zululand, atmospheric pressure and so forth. So he relates, he talks to that. Constructed with that is the question of the local municipality that we had to also call them in, and that's what the next clip is about, Chair. Thanks.
President Kwangamalala niye Nyaganya High School.
Nyaganya.
Yeah, near Nyaganya High School at Kwangamalala is the House of the President.
Is your number?
My number?
Yes.
Is 072
Thank you very much, Chair. So basically, that's what Nkandla municipality can offer in case of an emergency when it comes to firefighting capability. So that's with regards to the first area that was questioned as a non-security feature, and that's the question of a swimming pool, stroke fire pool. Now we then come to the second area, the question of the visitors' lounge. It should be noted that according to the RNG consultancy report, the visitors' center and control room were requested by the South African Police Service. Further, that the visitors' center sits on top of the SAPS control room. Now, and this point is important to take note of precisely because the visitors' lounge has also been referred to in some other quarters as a double-story house. And the question then arises, can you build your house on top of a police station? Because if below that is the SAPS control room, you then cannot put your private dwelling on top of such a facility. In the sense, it would be tantamount to building a house on top of a police station. Now, firstly, there is a need for this facility so as to control and secure all the president's meetings and other high-level official engagements in line with acceptable protocols and or etiquette, norms and standards. The visitors are processed, screened, registered, and directed to the lounge. Now, the next slide is basically the actual feature in question. On top, we have a visitors' lounge. At the bottom is the SAPS control center. Now, and one of the interesting features with this particular structure is that it's mounted with ballistic windows. Ballistic windows are bullet-resistant windows, right round, and I think that's what you'll also come across tomorrow. Now, the next slide is again another shot in terms of how it actually looks like within the property. But the location is also quite interesting because there you have this this particular feature there within the inner perimeter fence, and on the outer side of the outer perimeter fence is the National Defence Force Clinic. That clinic is not within the President's homestead. It's just outside the President's homestead. I think I will also skip. That was, yeah. But this one then takes us to the question of oh, by the way, on visitor centers, before I get to this one, on visitors, on the question of a visitor center, if you have this facility around where the President, for instance, lives, you have it in Masambondlo, we'll have it also in Durban, visitor center there, a visitor's lounge, let me put it that way. You also would have it in Nkandla, in Cape Town and so. So it's not a type of a feature that is out of the ordinary insofar as the location and function of a president is concerned. Now we then get to the issue of the amphitheater. The Parliamentary Adhoc Committee observed that the I quote from their report, paragraph 3.32 and paragraph 3.33, the land on which the President's private residence has been developed lies at a gradient of 40 to 70 degrees, which makes it more susceptible to flooding during storms. During the gradient, all construction activities such as earthworks and landscaping had to include fortifications, buttresses, and paving for proper water flow and stormwater drainage. As a result, a number of soil retaining walls had to be constructed at the private residence of the President in Nkandla to hold the soil and substrate against gravitational pull and stormwater. In this context, the soil retention wall also carries an access road on top, which is used by heavy security vehicles for purposes of work within the homestead. Now, what we then show is what actually is being referred to. And let me just also declare, honorable members, that the first time I heard about the term amphitheater, what came to mind with me was an entertainment area, an entertainment center. Now, because indeed, for instance, if you look at this structure which is located in Canada, that's a typical amphitheater. But for Mr. Self, who's from the Cape, will know that the V&A waterfront is more or less similar kind of structure. An amphitheater there. At the center you have a stage, and you have connecting points and so on for whatever, and then the seating arrangement is like that. It takes almost a semicircle sort of shape. That's what a typical amphitheater will be. Now, this is what has been referred to as the amphitheater in Nkandla, on the right. And this then begs the question, where does the term amphitheater come from insofar as Nkandla is concerned? Because when we went there, you see an alu garden in the first instance, but also interestingly is that even the construction itself, from the bottom of let's say this wall, for an example, from there to there, it's 63 centimeters, right? And from this end, the actual base at the top, to this end, it varies between 70 centimeters, and in some other instances is 1.3 meters, the width in between these short walls. So then the question was, why do we call this an amphitheater? In landscaping and civil engineering terms, this is generally referred to as the sloping dwarf sloping dwarf terrace. Sort of, that's the term. It's a bit of a longish term. I'll get this thing correct now. But also, what was explained to us before that. Let's go back to the same thing. What was then explained to us? Go back to the previous slide. Yeah. What was explained to us by engineers was that this is a wall retaining system, or it's there to basically deal with the question of the gravitational pull and retaining your soil substrate. But for purposes of functionality, they themselves also refer to it as an amphitheater. And I think that point was then somewhat clarified. But at the base of this, at the base of the dwarfing wall stepping terrace, for an example, which has been in this instance referred to as the amphitheater, you will see, we'll probably show also another visual, which also shows that at the bottom here is an assembly point with clearly marked sort of signage, for an example, that it is an emergency assembly point in case of whatever, but it's also contained in the documents of various state departments about the question about the question of what that area was to be used for. Now, this slide is another shot from just a bit of an aerial view as well. I mean, that's the outer. This end is your homestead. But what we also zoomed here from the other end, standing from the western side, is the SANDF clinic, which then points out the security road that is the other end within the inner perimeter side of the homestead. Now, yeah, sorry. Now, next slide, please. These are examples of heavy duty kind of vehicles that use the security road, which, by the way, will also include the VIP cars, because those are armor-plated sort of vehicles as well that are used by the president, and they're pretty heavy to carry and so on. But we'll come back to that point. Now, the next slide, please. Now, this is what I was talking about. At the bottom end of the dwarf sloping stepping wall terrace is an assembly point, which is used for briefings and debriefings and everything else, with clear signage and so on. But of course, on top of the so-called amphitheater is an alu garden, as we came across it and so on. It is important to note that the homestead dwellers are expected to be able to get to an assembly point as per emergency drills provided for in the SAPS page 7, paragraph 17.5, which stated, I quote, consideration must be given to an awareness program for the families of the president as well as domestic workers, close quote. In case of major security emergencies, officers as well as emergency vehicles would be able to assemble for briefing and debriefing at this particular zone. One of the if I could just add one small issue about go back to the amphitheater picture, yes. Now, one of the issues, as you'll see in the main report, for an example, is that as and I think this is what also the previous on this shoulder, basically, and it's not individual, and this is where what you'll probably also come across tomorrow, is a security access road, which was basically to carry heavy vehicles, security vehicles here, and it became important to buttress this particular slope in such a manner that it had to reinforce this particular security access road, which was a new construction on the other hand.
No, thank you, Minister. We'll stop there. Honourable members, we'll break now for tea and we'll return at 11 and the Minister will continue with his presentation. Thank you.
An investigation is now underway to establish whether the men were involved in other crimes. One of the men has also been linked to another shooting 2 weeks ago where a police officer died.
This is the strongest reading since October last year. New orders led to a rise in output for the first time since November. This means that the first quarter could have ended with a new high momentum that's likely to get carried into the second quarter.
An increase in oil supply from that country is likely to increase global oversupply of oil, and that in turn should spell continued lower oil prices.
We saw that really with the adjustments in the fuel price.